Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about Punnett squares. In genetics, we use Punnett squares to represent the genotypic and phenotypic ratios of the offspring of two living organisms. The square itself looks like a game of tic-tac-toe. However, the game is a little different. To use them correctly, we first need to understand a few concepts. In humans, cells contain 23 pairs of chromosomes. Chromosomes are where genes are located, and genes are what provides the traits that we inherit from our parents. Let's look at the example on the slide and pretend we are taking a closer look at chromosome pair number 1. You obtained half of chromosome 1 from your mom and the other half from your dad. Each of those contains a series of genes. In our example, we have the gene for hair color within chromosome 1. Genes can have different versions, which we call alleles. For example, hair can be brown, or blonde, or red. The color of your hair will depend on what alleles for hair color your individual parents donated to you. The alleles can be dominant or recessive. A dominant allele will mask a recessive allele. For example, let's assume the letter A denotes hair color. In hair color, the color brown is dominant over blonde. This means that if the allele for brown hair is present, it will overpower the blonde allele, and the person will show brown hair. The combination of alleles from mom and dad are known as the genotype. Genotypes can be homozygous or heterozygous. A homozygous genotype means that the person inherited the same version of the gene, same allele, from both parents. In our example, if one inherits a capital A from mom and a capital A from dad, the genotype will be capital A, capital A. Since they are the same, it is a homozygous genotype. The same would be true if one inherits two lowercase a's. However, if one inherits a capital A from one parent and a lowercase a from the other parent, then the genotype would be heterozygous. The physical appearance that results from the genotype is known as the phenotype. In our example, since capital A denotes brown and brown is dominant over blonde, which is denoted by lowercase a person with a capital A genotype will have a brown phenotype. A person with a capital A lowercase a genotype will have a brown phenotype, and a person with a lowercase a genotype will have a blonde phenotype. Now that we know the basics, let's put it into practice. If mom is heterozygous for brown hair and dad is blonde, what are the genotypic and phenotypic ratios for the cross? Remember that we've chosen the letter A to code for hair color. The first step is to draw the Punnett square. Again, this would resemble a game of tic-tac-toe. The second step is to determine and break down the genotypes for each parent. There is no rule as to which parent goes where in the Punnett square. That's up to you. The location won't change the outcome. In this example, we'll put mom on the side, vertical, and dad on the top, horizontal. The information we were given says that mom is heterozygous for brown hair, so she has two different letters, which means she has to be capital A lower a. We'll enter that information on the Punnett square by separating the letters. The information also stated that dad was blonde. To be blonde, there cannot be any dominant brown alleles, so he must be lowercase a. We'll enter that information on the square as well by separating the letters and placing them, in this example, on the top. The third step is to determine all genotypic possibilities for hair color for a potential kid of these two individuals. We do that by combining the corresponding column and row letters for each of the 4 boxes in the square. This will represent all the combination possibilities for this particular trait. Remember, one allele comes from mom and the other from dad, and which one they end up donating is up to chance. Usually, we write the capital letter, if there is one, first. In this case, it turns out that the 2 top boxes will have letter combinations of capital A, lowercase a, and the 2 bottom boxes will result in 2 lowercase a's. The final step is to report the findings. We want to report these as probabilities or percentages. There is a 50% chance that the kid from this couple will have an capital A, lowercase a genotype, and a 50% chance he or she will have a lowercase a genotype. There's also a 50% chance that the kid will have brown hair and a 50% chance that he or she will have blonde hair. It is very important to know that the probabilities will reset with each pregnancy or kid, meaning that the same probabilities will apply to any other kid this couple decides to have. In other words, if the first kid has brown hair, that doesn't mean that the chances of the second one being blonde suddenly increased. The odds of brown and blonde will remain at 50% because each pregnancy is an individual event.